you are ready.
You need more light. I need a little light.
Okay,
Because I get a little light, y'all. It's a little light. If I can read.
Okay,
No. Come on.
Jen hasn't shown up yet, our venue coordinator.
Oh.
She's the one with
The clicker.
There is
the
a
clicker, the light.
light switch there. Is it something on these?
I'll just get closer. That's all. I'll get closer.
That works for me.
Yeah, I'll just get closer.
Oh, look.
I saw.
Yes.
Yay, team!
Okay.
We can work it out.
That will help take the shadow off over there.
Yeah.
too.
Thanks.
Okay.
Getting introduced.
Hey.
No mic?
No mic. We have a low density grid this morning. So, be close. This is Jillian. She is from Zero Waste Boise.
Welcome.
And she's here to talk today about zero waste lifestyles and the things we can do to reduce our landfill.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Joe. And for you in the back, can you hear me all right? I'm competing with the HVAC system here. So if I start to fade, will you just raise your hand, let me know, and I'll pump up the volume. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, and I think that Joe is going to advance my slides for me. So I am Jillian with the Zero Waste Boise Institute. This is an organization that I founded about a year and a half ago. We are very new, we are extremely grassroots, and we are all volunteer presently, hoping to grow into a larger professionally staffed organization. So we can move on to the next slide. So I've heard zero waste described as the Cinderella of the environmental sustainability movement, meaning it's here, it's a thing, it's recognized and acknowledged, but it is downplayed, it's overshadowed by really pressing issues: clean energy, clean water, public lands conservation, and of course the big one, climate change. And what we're realizing is zero waste is not the cute little cousin of the environmental movement. Actually, it's core and it's critical. So the principles of zero waste underline all of the other activities in the sustainability movement, and consumption is the root issue and the root cause of so many of the problems that we're experiencing. So I was really delighted to see when I went on the Green Party of Idaho website that even though it might not be explicitly stated, zero waste is implicit in the core values that are stated by the Green Party of Idaho. And I was excited to see that. And what I really wanted to talk about today is the alignment between the zero waste movement and the Green Party values. So we'll talk about that a little bit further, but I have some other explaining to do in the meantime. So my organization, the best way to explain it, is founded on one of the most important environmental treatises of our time. It was written about 50 years ago, but it has often been ignored and overlooked and unheeded in the decades since. And that is, of course, next slide, The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. So with all seriousness, I read The Lorax to my preschool son a few years ago, and his reaction was actually really encouraging and really motivating. He said to me, as a very young man, not tall enough to peer over the recycling cart, "Mommy, we need to put posters up in the neighborhood to tell people to stop chopping down trees to make stuff." And I had to say, "Son, I agree with you. I don't think that paper posters are the right medium to discourage people from chopping down trees, but let's find another way to get the outreach out there." So the Zero Waste Boise Institute was born. Next slide, Joe, thanks. So if you'll recall the Lorax, I don't know if anyone has read it recently, perhaps to a child or a grandchild. The message is really simple. If you take and you never replace, soon there will be nothing left. And so the Lorax, disguised as a vintage children's story, is really a discussion of natural resource exploitation. We can advance. And unfortunately, the environmental degradation that was predicted in the Lorax is playing out in a very real way on our home planet. The truffula trees are fictional, but we're experiencing exact same scenario of taking and not replacing here on planet Earth. And I'm back to the line of vision. We can advance to the point where, in the time since this book was written, civilization has taken more from the planet than we have in all of history. And so rather than heeding Dr. Seuss's advice, we've actually gone the other direction, and we're getting worse, unfortunately. So our mission at the Zero Waste Boise Institute is to counter and to minimize the impact of throwaway consumerism by advancing the principles of reduce and reuse and recycling. And I say that as an aside. We talk about recycling to a lesser degree, and it's because recycling is an imperfect solution. I would never discourage anyone from recycling. Please keep recycling as aggressively as you can, but we can't use recycling as a crutch to bring materials and merchandise into our life that we probably should not be purchasing in the first place. I could deliver an entire college lecture on recycling. Unfortunately, we don't have that time today. Regardless of where I present, the first hand that shoots up is always a recycling question. We describe it as being necessary, noble, and naive, meaning that we need to move the conversation beyond recycling. So I always say with the Zero Waste Boise Institute, trash is the last thing that I want to talk about. Recycling isn't the first thing either. I work very closely with the city of Boise, and I can tell you what goes in which bin. I can tell you what goes in the gray cart, the blue cart, the orange bag. But what I'd really rather talk about is not filling up those bins and bags in the first place, because when you think about it, everything you buy today is future trash. And I think that's something that we don't think about. There's this disconnect between what we purchase and what happens with it after it's in our lives for a short period of time. So my slide, a little bit difficult to see here, Zero Waste 101, what it means and why it matters. So many of you here today are sustainability advocates. You're very savvy, you understand this, and you get this. And so my hope today is that I will share something new with you that you haven't heard before, or reinforce your motivation to reduce, reuse, and recycle, or help to equip you in your ambassador role. So the Lorax was up there as my ambassador. It's not enough for each one of us in this room to be moving toward a zero waste lifestyle. We've got to be out in the community with friends and family expressing how critically important this is. So the best definition of zero waste, it's the logical and desired outcome of the 3 R's. It's reduce, reuse, and recycle. These are the activities that, in theory, if you're aggressive about reducing, reusing, and recycling, you'll be moving toward zero waste. And there is a hierarchy with reduce, reuse, and recycle. I consider reduce to be the golden R. All 3 R's are very important, but reduce is critically important because every item that you pull from the store shelves has an environmental cost, and it's often unseen by the consumer. Sometimes we pay for it, and sometimes we don't, and those are the externalities, right? So reducing our consumption, reducing what we're taking and making in the first place is critically important, and it's the piece that we often forget. Reuse is very important, and it's important for 2 reasons. How many of you in this room actively take the time to reuse things, to recirculate things, maybe to acquire things used before choosing new? You understand this.
Choir. Were you on the choir?
I had a feeling that I was. So the important thing about reuse is it's not only waste diversion, it's not only keeping materials out of the landfill. When you reuse something, you are providing a substitute and intervening in the manufacturing process. And so by using something that's already been made, you're intervening in that cycle of extracting new resources and making new materials. And so for me, that piece of reuse is almost more important, and at least equally as important as the landfill diversion. The planet has already paid the price of the stuff that we have. So let's not make it pay the price over again unnecessarily. Recycling, again, very important. It's interesting, I work with a lot of students in classrooms, and I ask the question, why is recycling important? And the hands shoot up and they say, because it's the right thing to do. And I'm happy that they know that it's the right thing to do, but nobody seems to be able to articulate why. Why is recycling important? Well, it keeps usable material out of the landfill. It's certainly a more efficient way of producing goods. Typically, recycling takes less water, less energy to create than a different product. But what we don't think about is most of the stuff in our life is actually made from non-renewable resources. If you inventoried this room, if you went home and inventoried all the stuff that's in your house, unless it's all made from plant-based material, and I'm guessing most of it's not, most of the stuff in our life is made from a resource that's finite. It's going to go away at some point. And so unless we keep reusing and recycling what we already have, we're going to run out. So I think it's important to articulate the reasons why recycling is important. So one of my favorite slides to talk about zero waste. Sometimes people hear me speak and they say, I'm so relieved that you didn't tell me I had to go cold turkey zero waste today and completely overhaul my lifestyle overnight. I think that that is impractical. Someday I'll aspire to be Bea Johnson, who can put all of her trash in a coffee mug at the end of the year. I can't tell you that I'm 100% in my own home. At the Zero Waste Boise Institute, we take a really moderate approach to zero waste. I see it as a lighthouse off in the distance, and we are all in these little rowboats of reduce, reuse, and recycle, and we're trying to row to get to that shore as quickly as we possibly can, knowing that we might not ever land on that shore of absolute zero waste. It might be impractical in our lifetimes. So for us, it's about moderate, incremental steps, but always moving in the path, toward the path of less and less waste. Another way to talk about zero waste, and you probably can't see my header here, the life cycle of stuff. So zero waste is taking a look at the before and the after story of stuff. And if I can do one thing in my life, it would be to get the consumer to pause before every purchase and think to themselves, where did this come from? And where is it going to go when I'm done with it? So the before and the after stories are equally important in the zero waste discussion. As a society, we've done a good job of recognizing the after story. I'm not saying we do a perfect job of it by any means, but we're aware of it. We have some systems in place. We have waste management. We have recycling. We think about where stuff goes. So our options are reusing, recovering, like with the energy bag program, recycling, landfilling, and I had to add, sadly, this last piece as part of the after story. It's something that I'm getting an increasing awareness of, and that's when we don't capture things and they go rogue, and they go unchaperoned, and they wind up in the ocean, which is presenting a really, really critical problem. So this is what I mean when I talk about the after story of stuff. My header says, tossing it matters. And the reason that what we toss matters so much is because we're largely unaware of how much we're tossing. Any guesses? Have you heard the statistic on how many pounds of trash the average Treasure Valley resident or American resident generates in a day? Have you heard this figure? The official U.S. EPA statistic is 4.5 pounds of trash every day. I ran some calculations based on the numbers from the Ada County landfill, and at that time it was more like 5.7 pounds of trash every day. So you're all thinking about your gray cart at home, and you're thinking, I'm not putting 4.5 pounds of trash into that. Think about your day, think about all the different places where you visit. At home, at school, at work, at play. So you're leaving a trail everywhere that you go. Yes, thank you. That's my poster child, Joe, the plastic bottled water. You leave a trail throughout your day of waste, and you might not even see it. A lot of it might be upstream. What it took for that restaurant to get that plate on your table, there was some waste generated in the process. So 4.5 pounds of trash every day adds up to about 100 bowling balls worth of trash in weight for every man, woman, and child in the Treasure Valley every year. So this means that on any given day, we are sending about 700 vehicle loads of waste to the Ada County landfill. 700 vehicle loads. I saw this in my notes and I thought, that can't be right. I wrote that down when I interviewed the landfill for the first time last year, but then I ran some numbers and no, that probably is right relative to the landfill volume. It's the big Republic trucks, it's our individual pickup trucks. There are 70 vehicles on my slide. So this times 10 is what we send to the landfill. This is a map of Ada County, and there's Boise, Meridian, Eagle. Kuna is the small purple area down toward the bottom. Can you see the yellow area? That is the Ada County landfill. Did you ever know it was that large compared to the size of our community? So the purple areas that hopefully you can see are the populated areas of the county. That's the landfill. It sits on 2,700 acres. Now, the area that we fill and bury the trash is smaller. It's about plus or minus 300 acres. You need the rest of the buffer around the landfill because you need kind of that safety net from the activities of the landfill. 2,700 acres is a really big parcel of land. Here's the other piece of news. What are all the headlines about Boise and the Treasure Valley? How is this community changing? Growth. Everyone always gets that answer right. It's very much top of mind, obviously. This landfill was designed to last 100 years. When I toured the Ada County landfill for the first time last January, I was told, this thing's got a 100-year shelf life, it'll probably be our last landfill. You know, we're all looking for new technology and new waste management systems. We are down to a projection of about 54 to 56 years of life left on our landfill. It's growing more rapidly than it was designed for. We don't know where we're going to put the next one. So if you can imagine the process of trying to find space for another 2,700 acre landfill at today's real estate prices with NIMBYism, I'm not really optimistic that that's going to be a smooth process. And so it behooves all of us to slow the rate of fill of that landfill. Another reason we care about landfills, I don't know if you can see my little flare plume. Landfills generate a whole lot of methane. They actually generate about 15% of the methane that's generated in the United States. And so what we're burying doesn't go away, it has a consequence, and landfills do contribute to climate change. I used to think that stuff going to the landfill was worst case scenario until I started reading about what's happening in the oceans, and I'm sure all of you are very aware of this as well. So plastic doesn't decompose or biodegrade, it just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics. Fibers and dust, we breathe them, we ingest them unknowingly, and when these plastics end up in the ocean and they churn around for a bit, they turn into a microplastic film. And so it's true that there are these gyres of plastic in the ocean, but there's also this film that you probably wouldn't see if you were on a cruise, right? So if you've made pudding and you know that there's kind of that film left over on the top, that's what we're talking about in the ocean. So the last statistic that I saw, researchers and scientists are trying to tell us what percentage of the ocean surface area is covered in this plastic film. Any guesses what percentage of our ocean is polluted in that way? The figure that I saw was a heartbreaking 88%. And it's concerning because the plastic film chokes out the photosynthetic processes of the microplankton, and guess what? The ocean generates the majority of the global oxygen supply, is what we're learning, at least according to National Geographic magazine, and I trust them as a source. So we're all doing ourselves a disservice. 80% of the plastic in the ocean comes from inland sources, just like Idaho. So I've heard people say, oh, that's California, that's the coast. They picture people dumping plastic on the beaches and they think that's what's creating the plastic problem. It actually comes from places like Idaho. And when I meet with students and I ask them, how does plastic get into the Pacific Ocean from Idaho? They don't always have a ready answer. So on the next slide, I found the map. So what happens is litter gets picked up by the wind, it lands in the stream becomes the river, which flows to the ocean. And so yes, there's a path from Boise, Idaho, a loose plastic bag can get here can get to the Pacific Ocean from here. So you've got Boise River flowing into the Snake River, which flows to the Columbia, which ends up in the Pacific. So there you go. So that's the after story of stuff. There's also the before story of stuff. So as I said, everything in this room, everything we have in our lives came from somewhere. And that somewhere, or that something, was a natural resource with water and energy invested, and probably some emissions and pollutants created along the way. If you ask children raised in a highly urbanized environment where food comes from, what do they say? The grocery store. I feel like it's the same thing with our stuff. It magically appears. Where did it come from? It came from something. And so the before story of stuff is something that we work to create awareness of. One of my favorite examples when I meet with middle school students is pencil. Everything comes from somewhere. So you've probably never thought of a pencil as an environmental threat. And I'm not here to tell you that it is, or that we have to stop using pencils. But it's a really good illustration to create awareness of the fact that stuff comes from somewhere and it has an impact. So this lead has not been lead for many years. It's graphite mixed with clay. Graphite is something that has to be mined. And believe it or not, graphite is technically a non-renewable resource. You can synthesize graphite, but it's super expensive. And so there'll come a day when we run out of the material to make a pencil lead. The shaft of the pencil is of course made from wood, and the good news is most of the wood for pencils made in the US comes from a sustainable source, from responsibly harvested trees. There's paint, there's like 8 to 10 coats of paint on this pencil. This little metal doodad has a name, it's called a ferrule. And a ferrule is made from any number of different kinds of metals, which again have to be mined. And I don't have to tell this audience that there's an environmental cost to mining. And then the tip of the pencil is not really rubber, it's a synthetic rubber, which is a vinyl or synthetic rubber made out of an oil-based product. So there's fossil fuels in every one of our pencils. And so again, I'm not going to tell you that to save the planet we need to stop using pencils, but I hope that it will get us all to stop and think that everything has an origin and there's a cost. To the point where we've taken so much that we haven't replaced that scientists and researchers are now trying to put some numbers to quantify this. So if you picture this race every year where humankind is taking stuff to make stuff, and the planet is scrambling to keep up and to replenish what we've taken, because the planet does have some ability to regenerate. The planet is perfectly capable of planting a tree without us, right? So every year we're taking it, the planet is trying to replenish it, and at some point the planet falls behind. And so the Global Footprint Network quantifies this as Earth Overshoot Day. So it's the day, theoretically, in the year when the planet can no longer hope to replenish what we've taken within that calendar year. Last year it fell on August 1st. This year it fell on July 29th. We lost a few days in the span of a year. So are there any mathematicians in the audience? The calculation is the planet's biocapacity divided by our footprint times 365 gives you Earth Overshoot Day. So every planet, every country has its own environmental footprint, and you can guess that ours doesn't look as good as some others. And so the United States actually has its own Earth Overshoot Day, and that follows in March 15th. And what this means is it would take 4 planets worth of natural resources to sustain the consumption just from the United States. We first started calculating Earth Overshoot Day 1970, so exactly the same time that the Lorax was written. And here we are in 2019, so you can show how we've not progressed, how we've increased our consumption over the years. The good news is there's hope, because you can see that there's years where we dip back down, where Earth Overshoot Day actually fell later in the year instead of earlier, which means we're capable somehow of reducing our consumption and moving that date back. So close to the time that I was born, Earth Overshoot Day fell in late December. The projection is by the year 2030, Earth Overshoot Day will fall in June. So if it falls in June, that means that we need overall 2 planets worth of natural resources to match all of our consumption. It also means the chances of the planet ever catching up with us are greatly diminished, because if Earth Overshoot Day falls in the first half of the year, you're in this cycle where you might not ever catch up. And so 2030 is kind of an important year for the zero waste movement, theoretically and symbolically. So I'm a grant writer by trade. I know you can manipulate statistics. I know that statistics are numbers added to other numbers, added to other numbers, and divided, and at the end of the day, maybe August 1st isn't really Earth Overshoot Day after all. But here's the exercise that I ask people to go through. Think of the Boise Town Square Mall, someplace that I don't visit very often. Think of all of the stores, think of all of the stuff in every one of those stores, and ask yourself, what did it take to bring all of this stuff to the market, and did we put it back? Did we replenish all the resources that we used to make all of this stuff? And regardless of the number crunching, I think you can tell yourself with confidence the answer is no. We didn't put that back. We didn't put very much of that back at all. So this brings us to a very important conversation around climate change. And I said earlier that zero waste isn't the cute little cousin to the environmental movement. It's core and it's critical and it underlies everything. So as it turns out, all of the stuff that we're consuming is contributing to global greenhouse gas emissions in a really big way. There was a researcher who in 2015 tried to start to quantify how much of global greenhouse gas emissions stem from our consumption. And her conclusion was 60%. So that's really significant. And by the way, the Journal of Industrial Ecology, it's not some radical liberal journal, that's Yale. So this is sound science. The EPA's figure was about 40%, so even our conservative EPA is telling us consumption is driving greenhouse gas emissions, consumption is driving climate change. And we're starting to have leaders in the environmental movement recognize that zero waste isn't Cinderella, zero waste is underpinning the sustainability conversation. One of the challenges that I face is trash is local. We can all go tour the landfill. In fact, they love it if you do. We can all see the result of our consumption and how it's playing out in terms of trash. Consumption is a global issue. Most of the stuff we have in our lives was not manufactured in Boise, Idaho. And so we don't see firsthand the impact of our consumption because we're destroying somebody's landscape someplace else. So the challenge is taking a visible local issue like trash and relating it to something that we can't always see, but where we have an impact of the global issue of consumption. However, it's starting to come back home. And so I don't know how many of you saw the Statesman article this summer. Boise is on record as the 13th fastest warming city in the United States. Now, that's not to say that we're consuming more, that we're more wasteful, and that there's a direct connection between what we do in Boise. We know that Boise is subject to global forces, and it's a dry climate, which means global warming is going to be exacerbated. Climate change will be exacerbated in Boise. But it does start to create awareness that things happening other places impact us, and what we do here impacts other places. So the solutions have got to be local. Zero waste, and what does this mean? The very earliest generations of zero waste were nothing goes to the landfill and nothing gets incinerated. That's kind of where the movement started. And then it moved to the circular economy discussion of in the manufacturing process, Let's not waste. Let's reclaim everything that we create manufacturing, find a reuse for it, and let's design things so that they can be infinitely recycled, reused, remanufactured over and over again. Let's be smart in the design process. So circular economy thinking is a step in the right direction. We would like to take it one step further, and that is, imagine this pipeline where everything that you make can be remade over and over and over again. There's no waste in the process. But imagine you're still taking new natural resources as the demand for stuff continues to increase. So you're still putting material into this pipeline. And even though the pipeline goes around and around, and once a material is in the pipeline, it doesn't leave the pipeline and it never gets landfilled, you're still extracting stuff. And so the question really is consuming within the natural limits of what the planet can bear. And how do we do that? How do you start to put a limit on how much we're allowed to take based on what the planet can replenish? So I would argue we should only be taking what our planet can replenish in real time. That's true sustainability, right? Because otherwise you're borrowing from your children and from future generations. So I was really excited to see when I went on the Green Party of Idaho website that this discussion about consuming within natural limits is implicit in at least 3 of your core values. And so ecological wisdom, personal and global responsibility, future focus and sustainability, it's in there. So even though I didn't see the word zero waste, the understanding that we have to consume with limits, we're all accountable, and that we are borrowing from the future is embedded within the Green Party ideology. And I was really excited about that because I've not seen that written in a lot of other places. And then I would add that there's a need for individual awareness and accountability at the consumer level and really focusing on the consumer. The second value that I listed on the prior screen was about personal accountability and personal health relating to global health. And I was so excited to see the Green Party articulate that because I have a whole lecture series called Green is Good for You. And it's about how the choices that we make as individual consumers impact our environment and they impact us directly. And so it's all in all of our best interest, regardless of how environmentally savvy we are at our core. It's good for us to take care of the environment. It's a good way to take care of our own selves. So the decisions that we make can promote clean air, clean water, and clean soil. We know that we need a healthy habitat to be healthy ourselves. The same decisions that promote a healthy environment promote our health in a really direct way. So take bicycling. When you use your bicycle for transportation, you're promoting good air quality. Well, at the same time, you're getting good exercise, which is good for your body. And so it all comes full circle. A lot of what we do in Zero Waste is try and create linkages between what we care about and what our audience cares about. And so I can take any Zero Waste tip and tie it back to your health and probably your financial health and your pocketbook at the same time. So there's something in it for all of us. So again, I was really happy to see the Green Party articulating this in a way that I don't see other environmental sustainability organizations even articulating yet. So you'll have to forgive me. Does anyone in this room work actively with a climate change organization that's working to address? Okay, are you our next speaker?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I attend climate change symposia, and the speakers are brilliant, the data is sound, the work is all very inspirational, and I feel like we're missing an opportunity because what I often hear is those factories over there and what they're doing and what we need to do to regulate those factories. And what I haven't heard in the discussion is what are the factories making, who's buying all that stuff, and what if we just stop buying it? So the bad news is we're all complicit in climate change and environmental degradation. With every purchase that we make, we're responsible for what it took to bring that to the market because we're voting. And we're telling that manufacturer, yeah, that's an acceptable thing to do, that's an acceptable thing to make. So for me, that's kind of the bad news. It's also the good news because guess what? With our purchasing power, we all have control. Every single one of us, with every purchase that we can make a phenomenal difference. So we kind of reinvented the hand that rocks the cradle, I'm saying. So for us, the hand that steers the shopping cart rules the world. And so in my outreach, I could choose to address consumers, retailers, manufacturers. I don't have the bandwidth and I'm not equipped to talk to a retailer or a manufacturer because that's not my world or my expertise. I am a consumer. I know how to be a consumer. I know how not to be a consumer. And so my organization really works at the consumer level to create this demand and this appetite for a more sustainable marketplace. So we talked about linkages with the Green Party of Idaho values. I have spent a fair amount of time thinking about messaging to all of Idaho. Red, blue, green, purple, or otherwise. I want to be able to connect zero waste to the things that matter to everyone who lives in this state. And so that got me thinking quite a bit about old Idaho values. And by this I mean frontier values, the values of the settlers who populated this region, and also, of course, the indigenous peoples who were here first. I don't have them up on a slide, and I don't have those values because I don't feel like I'm qualified to articulate that. I hope someday to be. But I can certainly speak to the frontier values. And I really feel like zero waste is one of those things where red, blue, green, or otherwise, we can build some bridges and forge an understanding because I do think zero waste is very consistent with more conservative values. And even in those instances where climate change still feels like a hot button item, I feel like zero waste, the ultimate outcome of zero waste is addressing climate change without even having to say climate change. Self-sufficiency. We're beholden by our convenience to the manufacturers and the retailers. When you think about something like plastic bottled water, there used to be a lot more drinking fountains in public. Have you ever noticed that it's really hard to find a public drinking fountain? Because we've become so reliant on plastic bottled water, they're not really present anymore. And so I think about going about my day, if I fill up a stainless steel container with my filtered water from home, I have my water source. I'm self-sufficient throughout the day. I don't have to rely on finding a convenience store and hoping that they're open and hoping they're selling plastic bottled water at an affordable price. I'm taking care of myself. And so self-sufficiency, which I think is a frontier value and a conservative value, is very well aligned with zero waste. Resourcefulness, taking something that we've used and seeing its next possible life, reusing it, recirculating it. That takes ingenuity. It's really efficient. It's fiscally responsible, and to me that's resourceful. Independence. We are so reliant on stuff that we buy from foreign markets, and sometimes it's not well made. We are reliant on buying a product that is designed to fail. And then we're reliant on a repair person who might not even have the specific technology to repair our specific appliance. And then it goes to the landfill, and we're reliant on that manufacturer to sell us yet another item. And so we give up a little bit of our dependence, our independence to our consumerism. Self-regulation and market solutions. And so this is where we're really successful talking to conservative audiences. The Zero Waste Boise Institute, we don't get into policy work, we don't get into regulation. We are about self-regulation and making voluntary change. Again, because I thought that we would be more successful in Idaho, operating from a vantage point of self-regulation. But self-regulation and marketplace change can be really powerful things. So in Idaho, there's a law that was passed by the state legislature that local cities cannot ban single-use plastic shopping bags. So that sounds like a defeat until you realize, well, every grocery store in Boise, if properly motivated, can decide just not to offer them if they have the motivation and the inspiration to do so. And in fact, Fred Meyer, Kroger, I understand, is trying to go plastic bag free by the year 2025. So there's your end run. It's a marketplace solution. They're listening to customer demand. You don't even have to worry about what the state legislature is doing. And so I just wanted to talk for a moment because I'm personally so well aligned with the values of this group that we are working on ways to build bridges to talk to other groups that might not realize how aligned they are or could be with zero waste. In fact, a lot of the tips and the tricks that we offer for going zero waste one step at a time, they're not new, they're not progressive, there's nothing liberal about them, they're old school. They're all about dialing back the clock to what Grandma and Grandpa used to do when we stewarded our resources a lot more wisely. So conservatives tend to look to the past for answers, liberals tend to look to the future. We look to the past for a lot of our zero waste strategies. So nearing the end of the presentation, I hope I have just a few more minutes left of my time, Joe. So the question then being, where do we start? What do we do? We're on board. Let's get on this zero waste journey. That's another presentation. And I don't know all of you well enough to know your consumption patterns. We all consume throughout the day. We all consume different things. I really feel like if I can inspire everyone to want to make these changes, we're a smart people. We will find ways in our lives to eliminate waste and reduce our consumption. But two general principles and places to start: ditch the disposables. We've got to start with all of the single-use stuff. For practical purposes, 1/3 of our waste stream is packaging and containers. 1/3 of the waste stream and what you see at the landfill is stuff that was made to be thrown away. And when you think of how long it takes to bring that to the market, how quickly we consume it, and then it's going to go in the landfill, and some of that stuff's going to be there, we think, forever. Different materials have different rates where they either decompose or degrade, but most of that stuff's going to be there for a very, very long time. So if you're wanting to ditch disposables and if you're wanting to get packaging out of your life, I recommend that the best place that you start is with food. There's a lot of waste associated with food packaging. 2/3 of that packaging waste comes from the grocery store. So we've actually launched zero waste grocery shopping tours with Zero Waste Boise. We'll walk consumers through the co-op and talk about, okay, how do you get out of here with the least amount of packaging possible? And if you have to buy something that's packaged, how can you choose the most sustainable packaging? So start with your food. Join us on a zero waste grocery shopping tour. And even as you're looking at food packaging, start with plastic. Because if your food is in plastic, I guarantee you there's plastic in your food. There's studies now showing that even with safe plastics, bleach, the bisphenol A free products were merely substituted with bisphenol S, which is a cousin. Yes. So you do once again, it's the connection with your health. You're doing yourself a favor by starting with disposables, really looking at your food packaging and the plastic, and then decrease your durables. So durables, everything else, the stuff that's meant to last. Think about, for me it was the 3rd grade where I first started studying economics, and I remember very clearly this discussion of needs and wants. It's time to reassess our needs and our wants because we need this. We need the clean air, the clean water, clean soil, we need a healthy habitat. We don't really need this, we want it. So for me, I'm a consumer, I like nice things. I'm really not much of a shopper, but every once in a while I'm tempted by new stuff. And I'm not going to tell you that I never buy new stuff, because that would be dishonest. But it's rare and it's infrequent. And I always ask myself before I buy anything, which do I want more? Do I want this? Or do I want this? Every single purchase, take a pause. So we've reframed the 3 R's into simplified messaging. Think before you take, think before you toss. So my only request of everyone in this room is the next time that you go to reach for something off the store shelf, ask yourself, do I really need it? Could I get it some other way than buying it new and supporting that cycle of demand? Can I rent it, borrow it, trade for it? Can I buy it used? Can I at least get it from an environmentally friendly source? So think before you take. Think before you to toss. And so before you discard something that you no longer need or want, first of all, can you repair it? This has gone out of fashion. We need to make it fashionable to fix things again. Can I use it for something else? Can I recirculate it? And it's not enough to donate it to a thrift store, because I have to tell you, thrift stores receive so much stuff. Some of that does go to the landfill ultimately. If it's broken, if it's unusable, they don't have a magic system for fixing things. Most of them don't have the labor or the resources to fix stuff, to put it back on the shelves. You have to recirculate it in such a way that it has the best possible chance of having a second life. We are working to build a directory called the Reuse to Reduce Directory, and it's going to be a very comprehensive list of all the different places in Boise where you can recirculate with the best possible chance of rehoming your items, where to donate it or sell it, where to pick it up, where to repair it, or where to recycle kind of the unconventional things that don't belong in your blue cart. Recycling, of course, always recycle. It's the best interim solution. The orange bags, I've said this with the city of Boise in the room. I'm a big cheerleader for the orange bag program. I don't think they're a forever solution. We can't rely on orange bags forever, but it's what we have now. And it's so much better than things going to the landfill or getting churned into microplastics in the ocean. And then, of course, there's that very small category of hazmat. Hopefully, in a circular economy, we'll eliminate something that's considered to be a hazardous material. So, what are we doing as the Zero Waste Boise Institute? We offer educational outreach and then local initiatives because we realize we've got to make it easy to do the right thing. It's got to be just as easy to do the right thing as the wrong thing, and I've got to counter this culture of thinking this. We do have a newsletter. It's called The Light Lines, Tips and Tricks for Going Zero Waste. We're building out a Light Life guide, which is also how to go zero waste in your kitchen, in your bathroom, when packing your child's lunch, those kinds of things. We'll speak to anyone, anywhere. I've talked to book clubs. I've guest lectured at BSU. We're happy to speak to any audience at any time. And we are working on a curriculum to get into various schools to talk about the material science of where does it come from and where does it go, to create informed consumers that make decisions based on science. Local initiatives, the Reuse to Reduce Directory, the Zero Waste Shopping Tours, the things that I mentioned. I have 5 pages of programs that we hope to develop at some point. We're working on getting the funding and finding the resources because, again, we're an all-volunteer organization at this time. So I thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate spending my Sunday morning with you. And if you'd like to find us, the next slide, yes, this is our electronic business card. So zerowasteboise.org, you can send me an email directly from the website. And I'll be here for a few minutes after also. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Question.
Yes, please.
What does this area do with the plastic that they gather up in the recycling?
Okay, so in Boise, where are you from?
I'm from Nampa, but I
Oh,
assume
okay.
it's pretty much the same as what Meridian and Boise is doing.
So I actually need to research Nampa Recycling Protocol because I'm speaking at the library in January. So I want the Zero Waste Grocery Shopping Tour. I'll be delivering the presentation version of that. So it's the 11th. I'd love to have you join us there. So in Boise, we have the Blue Cart, which is curbside recycling. And the only plastics that you can put in the Blue Cart are number 1s and 2s shaped like a bottle, jug, or jar. Because of chemical composition and because the nature of producing those items, those are the only ones that are eligible for recycling. But we have the Orange Bag Program. And the Orange Bag Program captures a lot of the materials that we cannot recycle. And so plastics 4 through 7, which includes all of your plastic films, wraps, pouches, those kinds of things, picnicware, and so foam and plastic plates and bowls, plastic utensils, all of that can go into the energy bag. And also number 2s. However, the city's preference is if you can recycle it, their order is recycle it first. If you can't recycle it, then put it in the energy bag. And so the energy bag has opened up a lot of opportunity. I try to be careful in my house that it doesn't give me permission to buy more of that type of plastic because I'm trying not to fill up my energy bag either. But it's always 4 through 7, sometimes 2, and never 1 and never 3. So the only number 1 plastic that you can responsibly recycle in Boise is shaped like a bottle, jug, or jar. Flimsy plastic water bottles, clamshells, clear number 1 plastic cups, those things have to go to the landfill, unfortunately. And a lot of the reason is the number 1s that are flimsy, when it goes to the materials recovery facility, the conveyor belt thinks that it's paper because it gets squashed, and so it contaminates the paper recycling stream. So there's nothing about the chemical composition of a number 1 plastic bottle that keeps us from recycling it. It kind of gums up the works over at the MRF. And so that's why we're limited. And, you know, when the city of Boise, what's that? What do the numbers? So on the bottom of every plastic product, there should be a recycling number, 1 through 7. It tells you what the plastic is made from, and then it tells you about the recycling potential. And here's the thing that gets confusing for consumers. Just because there's little triangles made out of an arrow with a number on the bottom of your plastic doesn't mean it can be recycled locally. Again, it tells you what this plastic is, and it tells you, in theory, this plastic can be recycled somewhere in this country or somewhere on the planet. But all of the thousands of manufacturers have not gotten together to realize what can be recycled in local communities. Recycling is very local. The city of Boise makes the rules and sets the protocol, and so you have to know what's recyclable in your own community regardless of what those little triangles say. And every community is different, and every community has responded to the recycling market changing last year in a different way. So I'm going to learn about what can be recycled in Nampa, and then hopefully there'll be a discussion about bringing the energy bags to Nampa as well, because they're a good interim solution to keeping a lot of different plastics out of the trash.
Do you do training for trainers?
Potentially, yes. Yes, and in fact, some of our models, as we're working to develop curriculum, for example, I can magnify my impact by recruiting and training a number of volunteer speakers to deliver the curriculum instead of me always delivering the curriculum. So I think train the trainer is really the way to go to further broadcast the message, and we'd certainly be interested in entertaining that. We'll have to speak further, absolutely. I did want to mention the energy bags are not recycling. It's a recovery program. And so the contents of the energy bags actually go to a place called Renewlogy in Salt Lake City. And Renewlogy puts that plastic bag through a pyrolysis process. It's not incineration. In fact, they told me they didn't have to get an air quality permit because they're not burning anything. But what they're doing is melting the plastic back down into its original state. Plastic comes from fossil fuels. Plastic was a byproduct of natural gas and oil. They're deconverting it into what it was initially, and they're using it as diesel fuel. So again, not a forever solution.
Orange bags being collected at when you've got one filled, where you
Here in
take it?
Boise. So once they're properly tied off, we just put them in our curbside recycling cart with everything else. It's got to be contained in the orange bag. It's got to be tied off because there's no one at the materials recovery facility to sort stuff and to put it into an orange bag. All that they do is pick it off the line and set it aside. So as long as it's captured in that orange bag, it just sits.
And where do you get an orange bag from?
The city of Boise initially distributed some and now has a voucher program. Different cities in the Treasure Valley make them available in different ways. For example, they're for sale at City Hall in Eagle. Meridian, I believe, distributed them to a limited sector of their population. Boise distributed them across the board, but they are now available at Albertsons. And it's no more than like $10 for what is supposed to be a year's supply, depending on your consumption. So I have told friends in Nampa, if you know someone in Boise, I probably maybe should not go on record saying that, but I'm an opportunistic recycler and recoverer. If you want to experience the program, there's nothing to keep you from buying an orange bag, starting to fill it, and then if you've got a friend who doesn't fill their recycling in Boise, I don't think that there's any reason that you couldn't put an orange bag in their cart.
This is the first I heard of orange bags, so.
My hope is when I do my due diligence to learn the recycling protocol for Nampa, that we can introduce that into the conversation. Unincorporated Ada County, it's my understanding that they're working to get them as well, so I hope that Canyon County will follow suit. Yes.
Well, first I want to say thank you so much for this material. It was really awesome. I wonder somewhat about the bigger picture about, it seems like what you're saying, which is totally on board with, is, we have to consume this. But I can just imagine pushback saying, we're a consumer society, we need more, manufacturing, more housing starts, more, and it seems like there's just this bigger force,
Absolutely.
economically driving consumption.
And we have to have an economy. We have to have some kind of an economy. So I would say part of the answer is circular economy, because it's not that you're not manufacturing and selling new things, you're just doing it in a way that stewards the resources a little more wisely. I also think part of the solution is moving away from a stuff-based economy to a service-based economy. Let's exchange services by taking better care of one another. Let's invest more in preventative health care and really buffer up those sectors of the economy that do good and that don't create harm. So I think the answers lie in there somewhere, and I think the question that you're posing is the biggest question of our time. And so I think it was value number 10 that I had up on the screen from the Idaho Green Party kind of began to address that question, and it talks about not having an economy based on extensive, continual, expansive growth. And I don't know if you've ever read Deep Economy by Bill McKibben. It's a book that's about 10 years old. One of my favorite books. It poses that same question about how do you sustain an economy that's not based on expansive growth and continual exploitation. It is a challenging question, and I think it's the one ultimately that we have to answer. Circular economy, service-based economy, and again, recognizing needs versus wants. What do we truly need, and what we need is a habitable planet.
I'm a presidential candidate. The issue for our campaign is ecological economics. And we're uncomfortable with saying it. I say it so clear. No green, no deal, blue or green. We have to change and have a system change. And folks are uncomfortable. Capitalism has gotten us here. Consumptionism isn't working. Manufacturing jobs in our nation won't come back. So we have to build it on service. And it can be done ecologically, economic-wise, and circular. It's about having honest conversations about what got us here, what's going to get us out of here, and what we have to understand is so clear, and it's based on nature. This is not against anybody. It's for us to sustain ourselves, because the earth can live without us. We're the problem. We are the problem. We all go, earth will do good. And it's just, I think people don't want to just face it. It's not working. It hasn't worked and it won't work. So when I was like, I'm just like, everything you're talking about is what I talk about and what we've been living. I'm one of 26 children. So this concept is how I was raised. Socialism and that way of understanding, I've got it. So I'm just like about to jump off. I'm so happy and want to support and help. There's cultural things that I know that I can definitely help, because at the end of the century, it's a brown one. So these things are not foreign to brown, red, and black folk. It's how we were raised. If we go back to who we are. So I'm real proud, I'm honored, and I'm so happy I got a girl to come. I'm so happy.
Well, thank you.
I'm so grateful.
I think the answers are out there, and if we're properly motivated, we will find them. So a lot of what we work to do is to create the why, just increasing the motivation and the inspiration. Thank you.
You're welcome, Samantha.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us this morning, Jillian. I really appreciate it.